right, welcome to the Darien Sewer Commission regular meeting of Tuesday, June 3rd in room 206 at Town Hall. Calling the meeting to order at 4:36 p.m. First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of May 6th.
I looked them over and didn't see anything.
Okay.
Well, I looked them over and I wasn't here.
Well, you still catch them.
I always like to look them over
I guess I didn't
when
look
I'm
at
not
them.
here to know what happened.
Yeah.
That was interesting. Why isn't that on the agenda? So do I have a motion?
I'll make that a motion. We approve
Okay.
as submitted.
Do I have a second? All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Recused.
And so 3 in favor, 1 abstain.
Who was the second on that? I'm sorry.
Peter
Okay.
Reese abstained? Yep.
Reese
He wasn't here.
abstained.
Okay.
He wasn't here last month, so he's.
Doesn't have to abstain.
And Mr. Hill has
And
won.
here he is, the man of the hour.
I should have waited.
You didn't have to run for us.
Do you need us to go get you a Red Bull or something?
Not yet. Not yet.
You want to
19 and a half hours, a little long.
All right, well, you need to take a nap in the middle, just let us know.
Okay.
Just a heads up, I would ask my commissioners if we could take the agenda a bit out of order today. I'm going to be recusing myself from item number 5. So hoping we can do 6 and 7 before that. And
Do you want to do 3 first?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, so sewer user fee appeals, we'll start with 3A, 12 Locust Hill Road, Stephen
You've
Pang.
arrived at your destination.
You certainly have.
Sorry.
Come up here, tell us your
I'm trying to
name
find the absolute
and
fact.
your address.
I'm Allison Payne, 12 Locust Hill Road, Darien.
Allison,
Oh, wait a minute, Locust Hill. Okay,
Locust Hill.
I got this one.
Do you have any refreshments? What do you got, Bob?
Well, February and March appear to be an anomaly considering their, is this the one where the shower froze? When-
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
the shower froze. I would ask if it went down the drain, but it's kind of irrelevant because it's, you guys picked it up so quickly. So I would say that we drop February and March, take January, December, and November, total those, which is 36, annualize it by times 4, get 144, times that, times $7.50, and come up with a new amended bill of $1,080.
Well, I think, there's also a little, I look at November and I see a little trailing irrigation from an October.
That's when they just started up their house, so
Yeah,
I
it's
doubt they had
zeros.
irrigation.
Unless they were trying to plant grass.
Yeah, I mean, the 23 seems high to me for what.
No.
That's-
That's the newest year.
Isn't
That's-
that the?
That's
Oh,
just
we're
to
looking
give
at
us some
last year.
information.
Yeah.
Got
That's
it,
just because
got it.
the staff was so wonderful, or.
Oh, I
the
see.
applicant
So you're
was so
taking-
wonderful to give us this.
You're taking the 16, the
The
11,
middle
and the 9?
column.
Yeah.
Oh, for this year,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The middle column is the one we're really working
All
on.
right,
The
so-
one all the way to the left is to
Information.
estimate next year to give us some information.
Got it. Do you have a motion, Bob?
I do, to make an amended bill for $1,080.00.
For the 23-24 fiscal year?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Do you understand the motion?
I think so, yes.
Okay. Do I have a
Sorry, I was
second?
thrown into this today.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's
Good
fine.
job.
Good
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Oh,
So
sorry.
that's 5-0.
I mean, it goes in line with what.
Yeah, no, I get it now. I get it
Well,
now.
but then,
I was
but what
off
I'm
by-
saying is
yeah.
that was a 12.
Yeah.
So if you went to the column all the way to the left, it's 12.8. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's in line with what's going to be their bill next year.
So what I will offer, in terms of what I see here, so we take 5 months of the year to create the sewer bill. So we start in November, we end in March, and that's how we decide how much water you use, therefore how much water went down the drain. Sometimes that November invoice is capturing some of October, and sometimes Octobers can be warm and dry, so you're still irrigating outside.
Yeah.
So we could be capturing some irrigation water in your bill, and so your bill's a little bit high.
Okay.
So just make sure by like early October every year, you shut down the irrigation system, and then you'll save some money on that side too.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank- Have a good day.
Thanks.
All right. 3B, 10 Harbor Road, Luke Doherty.
Just,
No volunteers? Okay.
We do have a handout.
Okay.
It is from
At the request of the gentleman that doesn't usually like handouts at the meeting, just want to point that out.
Okay, okay.
Well, but
Catch it
it's,
on a weekday.
it would be impossible to,
He's clearly lightheaded today.
There it is.
no, but it wouldn't be possible to deal with it without it.
Okay.
Understood.
And I'm not even sure we can deal with it, but I'm gonna look.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Single
Yep.
sheet.
One pager should be.
Well, yeah, it looks pretty clear, actually.
Well, but I don't know if, let's see, it went from 58 to 21.
Wow, 36, 58, 21, 17.
Okay.
Oh, this is for,
Harbor Road. It's the next one. Do you want to read it, Craig? Open the next one? Or did you?
no, I'm
Just reading this.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking, I mean, certainly this past year looks normal, but that's not what we're looking at, really.
No, but we're looking at that to see if the repair that was supposedly done on April
Was done.
did what it was supposed to do.
Yeah, got it.
Now, the repair was mostly a grinder pump, right?
I don't know what that is all about. No,
The
there's a
invoice-
toilet in the house.
Yeah, but the invoice seemed to say it fixed a grinder pump in a septic system.
But they also said they replaced the toilet in the house.
Yep.
The grinder pump, I would be interested to ask about, because the grinder pump went, did we have a SSO in the backyard?
Is that a E1 for the low pressure?
That's the site. Address 10
Harbor
Harbor.
Road?
No,
Is that what it is? There's a sewer ejector outside of the house?
Yes, and Harbor Road is all low pressure,
Okay.
unless it's indoor, but I'm familiar with this particular house, but it's probably outdoors.
So are you saying that all that water did not go into the sewer?
No, that's not.
No, it went in the sewer. It just went through the sewer ejector to get there.
Just have two issues. They fixed the grinder pump, and that seemed to be the invoice for me, not the toilet, but maybe the guy, while the guy was there, he fixed the toilet.
2025. Did he mean April of 2024?
I think so.
Yeah.
A lot of water went down the sewer.
You finishing your calculations based
Yep.
on the new invoice?
Yep,
Okay.
You ready to summarize it?
I am.
Okay.
Okay.
See if I follow along this time.
Well, what I actually did was, I went to the year before
Yeah,
and
yeah, which looks normal.
got the 12 as an average.
Sure, yep,
Move that forward a year,
yep,
annualize it, you get 144,
yep,
times 750 is 1080.
yep,
That's the first part of this.
okay,
The second part is, 63 is month 1 of the leak,
Yep.
34 is month 2,
yep,
40 is month 3, 45 is 4.
yep.
So
Et cetera.
there's 3 more months of the leak, it appears. I'm not really sure where they, or wait a minute, it's probably more than that.
Well, they said it was fixed in April, so,
They did? Is that what it said? Or is that when the plumber came out? Look, you gotta look at the bill.
plumber was called in April 2025 to evaluate and replace the entire toilet. So, well, yeah,
The toilet one. Wait a minute, I wanna say it was later than that they,
I think they tried to deal with the valve, and it wasn't working, so then they just replaced the whole thing.
okay. So, we'll say that it's through April, the leak.
Mm.
So it's an 11 overage in January, a 14 overage in February, a 7 overage in March, and an 8 overage in April.
Is that year over year, the net of the?
It basically is given them
Yes.
a 4-month grace period
So
to act.
that's 25/40.
Yeah,
We get half, they get half, so it's 20 that they have to pay, times 750 is 150.
okay.
So their total bill would be 1230. It would be 1080 plus half of the leak of 150
After the first 4 months.
after the 4 months equals
Yes.
1230.
Good,
I like that.
fair, consistent,
God, with no sleep.
and with little sleep.
Good job.
So I would make a motion for an amended bill of $1,230.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, appeal granted.
Well done.
You good on the notes there, Darren? Okay.
12:30.
Last user fee appeal, 28 Georgian Lane, Patrick Eichmann. Come on up, sir. Tell us your name and address. And if you're lucky, Bob will start talking before you do. Yeah, it's your name,
I
sir.
can.
My
if
name
you
is
want.
Patrick Eichmann. Address is 28 Georgian Lane.
Okay. Let's see what Bob has first.
Okay.
Well, let's see if we have any
So
questions.
if we're looking at it, it's definitely an
Yeah.
anomaly
Let's
of
go by
November and
Ouch.
December.
Yep,
So we drop those, we add 9 plus 6 plus 7,
yep,
22, we times it times 4 to get to annualize it.
yep.
That's 88.
Yep.
Times 750 is $660.00. So I would make a motion for an amended bill of $660.00.
Okay, do I have a second? I assume you understand the motion?
I do.
Nothing to
Is
add?
that bill
Let
reissued?
us vote first.
Yeah,
sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Any
Peter-
further-
Peter's the
any-
second.
Peter's the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, you have to do nothing until you get a new bill from the tax assessor.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
660, thank you.
Yeah, 660.
That was efficient.
Yeah, no, we're good. We're moving right along here. 174 Mansfield Avenue. Update. Item number 4.
Just put in there, 2 letters for you folks. One going out, one coming back. Just let you know the process that we're investigating, how we do it.
I like the process very much. I love the documentation. In a future sale of 174 Mansfield, they'll find this information in your office?
The lateral file.
In the lateral file. Reese, do most brokers or new homeowners look in the lateral
Yeah,
file?
quite a few do. Wouldn't you say?
Okay, good.
People check the lateral file.
Yes, they do, the realtors do.
Excellent.
Oh, good. Are you educated? That's good.
I'm not doing anything.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
We good with that update? Any other questions for staff?
I'm good.
Okay. So this is where I would like to take the agenda out of order and do 6 and 7 first and then get back around to 5 because I'm going to recuse myself from
Need
that.
a motion for that?
No, I
I
can
don't
take
think
the
so.
agenda out of order as long as there's no
It's the
significant
chairman's
objection.
prerogative.
Yep. So we got some late information from our attorneys who reviewed and edited the sump pump removal info. And we wanted to distribute it as soon as we got it, even though we know that we didn't have a lot of time to look at it. But if there's any initial reactions or questions right now, we can go and talk about it, or we can punt it to the next agenda. I tell you, I read it, and I was, quite frankly, happy with the attorney's language. Ed, I don't know if you felt the same way.
I did.
Yeah, I thought he did a good job. The language, I understand why he added what he added, so.
Yeah, he
I didn't-
understood the mission.
Yeah, we had another phone call altogether again to make sure it was conveyed properly. And, I have no comments, but I also don't necessarily need to take a vote tonight if not everybody had time to sit with it and
No,
review
no,
it.
let's move forward. Let's make some
I'm for
sense.
moving forward. I don't know if anybody
If
else.
anything's
Did you have a chance to read it? or no?
I had
Yeah.
a chance to read some. I mean, I had 2 thoughts.
Yeah,
Number one, having a purpose statement with the on on our affidavit, I don't think is the way to go. I think a cover letter is the way to go, number one. And number two, the disconnection part of the affidavit, I also disagree with. I think that should be its own separate entity, that paperwork. But those are my two thoughts from that. I didn't get a chance to look at the
Yeah, my
regs part.
understanding is the purpose statement is in the reg, and it is appropriate in the reg. I didn't see the purpose statement on the affidavit.
I thought I took it as
Yeah.
the lawyer mentioning that the purpose statement should be on the affidavit, because the affidavit is gonna be delivered to the homeowner to fill out. Maybe I misread it, but I mean, I just assumed that we were gonna have a cover letter. We weren't gonna just,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
so we
send
can,
them
yes, exactly.
a
agree.
affidavit, say, here, fill this out.
Well, I would agree with your statement, which is we should have a cover letter, and the purpose of why we're asking for this should be documented in the cover letter with the compliance statement attached. I agree with that sentiment.
But he was also saying that there should be a Part D, so that this affidavit, the entire thing should be resubmitted after there's an, I'll say, improper connection, and it's disconnected.
Yeah.
I personally think it should be its own separate form.
Oh, compliance form after the fact?
Yes.
Something-
Yeah, I
something
mean,
that
well,
goes in a lateral
as soon as
file.
I think it's just a little unnecessary, right? Because if we go through the process, we figure out something needs to be disconnected, and then it's disconnected, then you could just hand them the same compliance form as everybody else and have them fill it out, because now it's been disconnected.
But, and he kind of mentioned it, and I think it should be mentioned, the fact that reconnecting is not allowed.
Well, we could put that in the lateral file and note. in the
That's
file.
why I think it should be a separate statement. Sorry, I maybe it's my cynical side, but think that they need to be given belt and suspenders that, you know, just because you comply doesn't mean tomorrow you can uncomply.
Ed, do you have any kind of administrative thoughts about handling this?
We're struggling with how to go back after we find one is repaired, and what's the next step going to be, but there had to be eyes on it. Somebody has to put eyes on.
That it's done and done
It
correctly?
has been done correctly, and now the new document in the lateral file
Yeah.
is, yes, it was, now it's no longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if a future buyer were to go look in the lateral file and say, hey, there was a problem before, let's go make sure it's not been reconnected.
Well, but if you're saying eyes, then it needs to be different, because it has to have, if the eyes are Anthony's, it has to have a place for him to sign it, or, you know,
Well, that's
if
the-
that's what we want to do, you know.
Whose eyes? It doesn't, I said, I don't have the
Yes, I
manpower
can
to have it
understand
be
that.
Anthony. So is the document valid enough, or does it carry enough weight if we allow the homeowner to say, it has been now finally disconnected, I'm resubmitting my affidavit to say, I no
Yeah.
longer have a sump.
How about a picture too? Weren't we requiring pictures?
I think,
So, because this kind of gets to the point that it's a different enough case, that if it was a different form, maybe that makes sense,
yeah.
yeah.
This is kind of why, I mean, I don't want to rush through these.
Yeah,
This is the meat of it now.
Yeah.
This is the part that, if we get off on the wrong step with
Yeah.
these, it's only gonna get worse down the road.
I mean, we could send a fresh affidavit the next year to that person after they've corrected it.
or they could just, again, like it's, once it's disconnected, they could say it's disconnected, it's not connected, here's my signature.
Yes.
And here-
Not
and
connected.
here's a photo of the old and the new.
Yeah,
or here's
yeah,
a
yeah,
photo of
exactly.
the-
I think it could be the same form, but that's
Yeah.
me, and I respect other opinions.
It's more just something for the file, right?
Yeah.
That it's been
Yeah.
corrected.
They need, the fact that they need to fill out a form.
That, and they don't
Once
get
it's
hit
been
with another
disconnected.
$250
Yeah,
fine.
right,
Right.
yeah.
Right, I mean, that's the check the box, right? If you fixed it, we check your box and you no longer have
But
it.
now, the way the reg is set up,
But it's also has to say that the situation was rectified in 6 months. So waiting a whole number of year
I know.
is not acceptable
No, no,
in-
yeah,
to me.
yes.
Are you saying maybe you have the building department go and check I know you're
Or-
laughing.
No, I
or
mean-
Anthony.
Now that he said it, I have no
Someone-
problem with the homeowner doing it, I just think it needs to be a
It could
different
Any
form.
qualified individual
Yeah,
that can
yeah.
actually
Yeah.
tell me what a pipe is and what a connection is,
Once
and take a
disconnect-
picture of it.
And I'm totally good with that, I just think it should be a totally different form. I have complied with the 6-month, you know, I'll think of something,
Yeah,
but
no,
I have complied with the 6-month period to disconnect it, and here, basically, here's my proof.
Could be a letter for the file.
no, it could be a form, and at the bottom of it, sewer superintendent has to sign off on it.
Yeah, there you
Okay, I have
go.
proper evidence now that it's been done.
Any form, that's a picture, a letter,
I got a picture, a letter, and you signed the form for me too,
bill
saying
from
that.
plumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the sump pump compliance statement is not a part of the regulations, it's referred to in the regulations. So we have the ability,
Add it.
you know, from
Change
time to
it.
time to
Change
alter,
it,
change.
tweak it, yeah.
You know, without having to go back to a public hearing and going through the
I
regulation
think that
process.
was the intent when we
Yeah.
spoke on the
That was-
phone, was
So-
to give us
so-
some latitude with.
More of a
Yeah,
policy.
so we could keep tweaking this up until the day we make the copies to send it out
Okay,
the first
You
time.
can tweak it the next year.
So let's jump back then to the reg. Did anybody see anything in the reg that they were uncomfortable with, or edit, or change?
I read
Yeah.
his email, and I don't
Yeah,
know
sure.
enough of
So you
that.
need another, so we'll take one more month.
The compliance statement I wrote, so I could remember that.
Well, I guess at this point, maybe what we should do.
Do a public hearing.
No, not yet, because we need to make sure that
What's-
the political umbrella is aware of what we're doing.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the time, I think,
How
that
much certainty
maybe
do
we
you
want
need?
consensus to.
At least start the meetings. right?
Yeah.
We wanted to meet with at least the first selectman to
At
at
least the
least
first
get him up to
selectman
speed.
and the DPW committee of the RTM.
And it's not, though it's not finalized, it's, in everyone's opinion, it sounds like,
Yeah.
it's pretty close,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so this is good enough to start sharing, saying, and I would create a clean copy off of this, actually, we have it already, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got the clean copy, maybe touch this up a little bit so it looks clean for now.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we can just put a big draft stamp on it, and,
I wish there was a way I
Circulate it.
could make it just 2 pages instead of 3.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you
So-
want
so
me, yeah,
Allow
oh,
me
yeah.
some latitude. I'm gonna
2
give it a
sides,
shot.
oh, 100%.
Yeah, one piece of paper,
100%.
2 sides, I'm okay with that.
Please, one page, yeah, one piece of paper, exactly, 2 sides, that's all you get, figure it out.
There's gonna be a lot of abbreviations.
Sites font, like,
Wait a minute.
What is a qualified individual?
It has
Plumber.
red
It's
lines
in the reg.
It
So
has
the
red
qualified-
lines through Part C,
could be a
the
homeowner.
qualified individual. Why is that? They don't have to sign it?
No, you cross that part out and has a new part C, so
Oh,
go,
it's over
pay,
here.
yeah.
Oh, before.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a new part C.
Oh, because now there's a statement with it?
Yes,
Anybody willing
which
to
makes
sign?
sense, I like that statement, we should
Okay.
do that, I think. Like, why are you signing it? So the qualified individual, Peter, is defined as, responsible party. A person with a recognized degree, certificate, or extensive experience and ability that is able to properly determine the requested technical information.
Shouldn't that be in the regulation?
It is, I just read that from the regulation.
Is this regulation?
That is the regulation. It is on the clean copy. There, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
See, now reading this part C, I'm sorry, now reading this part C here, that to me screams separate form. Sorry, just my opinion.
No, it's perfectly fine. But yeah, well, that's what you said.
Yeah,
You
but
started.
I'm saying now,
You're
it
saying
even,
again.
seeing it in, red and white, makes me feel that even more.
Okay. All right, so,
We can move forward without the separate form.
we'll tweak,
Sure can.
yeah, exactly, because we can get the first form out.
Absolutely.
Yep. So,
So you're gonna be issuing the fine and we're gonna be a judge and jury.
Yeah, I think that's basically
Like
what
we
they're
do with
saying.
appeals. So we're
Right.
in natural law.
yep,
Yeah.
it's basically a fee charge,
Yep.
and if they want to come say this was extenuating circumstances, and here's why it should be reduced or eliminated, they can do that.
We've shown our kindness over the years,
The-
especially
yeah.
Bob giving all that money away.
I know, it's always granting these appeals.
My-
So Ed, first step obviously is the boss, if you want me to participate in that meeting, I will make myself available for it.
Okay.
And maybe after that, then we meet with the
Public Works Committee.
Public Works Committee.
Can someone explain to me the new box here, the sump pump discharge into some other location? Where else can it be? Above ground, a storm sewer, or sanitary sewer?
Yeah, I didn't,
Where else can it go?
How about into a dry well?
Is that common?
No, but it could be. I
Yeah.
But why would you do that? How would you?
No, no, people have done
I have
that.
no
We
idea.
have designed that.
Okay.
So then do you pump out the dry well?
But the
Like
odds,
so
the
it's in the
odds,
ground.
It's like a
the
cul-de-sac.
Like an
the odds
infiltration
are,
But does that clean the sewage?
No,
No,
this
not
isn't
sewage,
sewage,
it's
this is
sump.
clean water.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
okay,
It's
that's,
called a
that's
cesspool.
fair,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
but it's gonna end up being probably that they can't be observed unless they saw the
Yeah.
pictures during.
So maybe there won't be a
construction.
lot of people to check that box.
Okay, just
Yeah.
asking the question.
I
that's
mean, you could put in an old septic system. If you went to the sewer and you had a septic system out there with the galleries and everything still functioning, you could put a sump up into that just fine.
So as this is not yet final, I don't think we need a motion, but I think if the consensus is that Ed proceed with
Yeah.
letting people know about it, and maybe take another stab at the actual affidavit, and we'll see it again next month.
So what's our timeframe on this? When do we want these out, the letters out, next billing period or sooner?
January?
Okay, so we got a ton of time then.
It goes quick.
It does.
I know.
You go by
Yeah.
in a hurry.
So we did a public hearing like 3 months, 4 months, that would be fine,
I
timing wise.
think probably around October-ish.
Cool.
I did speak with our tax collector.
Yeah,
She didn't see an issue with it being included on the bill.
yeah.
I'm circling back to our invoicing company right now to see if that's
How to add it.
how to add it in. Problem is, I'm missing one of our staff members right now that kind of always manipulated that invoice, so I'm kind of working with
Where are
her.
you gonna put the
offset.
award on the wall when you get an award for this?
What's that?
Where are you gonna put the award?
I just hope I don't have to put a target on anything that I wear.
Yeah.
Okay?
Start wearing camo to work.
I think we've been, through this whole process, I think we've been fair. I think we've been patient. I
Yeah.
think we've kind of tried to get the word out through any type of notices we put out with the bills that this
Yeah.
impacts us significantly with our water that goes over to Stanford. Plain and simple, it's money.
Yep.
We're basically running money down the water and down the
And our
toilet.
system being aged, sized from years
And,
ago.
you want to add it up, so far we've spent close to, or we'll spend close to $4.5 million on upgrades to our sewer infrastructure to provide it to be watertight as best we can. And this is the next step. This is a leak. We're gonna close the leak.
Yeah, this is all the other leaks we're trying to close, which is a good segue if we're done with items.
I was gonna go back one sec, because I
Okay.
missed it. You guys did catch the part where it said, I said 48 gallons went to Stanford instead of 480 gallons went to Stanford instead of 480 million in last month's notes?
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, it says 480 gallons went.
Okay. Well, that's also true.
It would be page 4 of the,
It says 840
It says
gallons.
840
says
gallons?
840 gallons of water were sent to Stanford.
Yep,
Yes.
48% qualified as unaccounted.
Yeah, but it's 480 million gallons.
So it's not,
840 million gallons, I'm
Oh.
saying.
Would we all
MG,
be comfortable
MGs.
amending the minutes
Yes.
to put
comfortable with
MGD in
that.
there? Okay.
Even though I just voted.
It's just
That's a Scrivener's error, that doesn't require a vote.
Yep. It's
Sorry,
yeah, it's only millions of gallons.
it's a decimal point.
Are we ready to move on to 7?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
Okay.
Want to tell us what you did over the weekend first?
You want to hear that one first?
Any order you want.
Well, we'll start with the near water pump station. For those folks that did not come out Saturday morning into early Sunday morning and through Sunday, we had a power outage down at the near water pump station. I think it started somewhere around Saturday afternoon, around 2 or 3 o'clock. We got a call, generator's on. Steve kind of checks us out, comes down. We can't find the problem. Contact Eversource. They come out. We're looking for the problem. Update at 7 o'clock. We were still running on generator. No idea where the issue was, but everyone in Nearwater had power. By midnight, they figured out that the transformer by our pump station had basically fried. Not knowing why, we got their heads together. We called in Brian Fransforth. Steve was already on site, just trying to figure out where our issue was. And we found it in the line between the transformer and our pump station motors. So all the underground from, there's 3 conduits from there had been shorted out. And from what they tell me, that short caused the transformer to overload and burn itself out. From there, around, I got the call around 3 o'clock in the morning. We ended up calling in an electrician. We took that generator that we bought with ARPA money and we hooked it up to the Nearwater station, one of the pumps, just in case the other generator decided it didn't want to work anymore for us. But I have to say it made it all the way through. But there was my belts and suspenders, and from there we went to start looking at issues. Eversource first told us they couldn't get a transformer until Monday morning. I give Steve credit. He told them that was not acceptable. They dug around and found one. They had people on site, probably the nicest group of Eversource workers, the line people that I've met. They're just so darn accommodating and helping us out. Brought an excavator in. We started digging. Of course, the conduits were encased in concrete. Of course, there was the telephone lines on top of it. Of course, we just built the enclosure around the transformer we had to dig under. So, you know.
Nothing's easy.
But we finally found where we could. We pulled all the wires out. One of them we couldn't. We had abandoned one of the conduits, but we only needed 2. Got everything back pulled again, back up and running by 7 o'clock Sunday night.
24 hours.
So you couldn't use the existing lines to pull the new
We,
lines?
we pulled them out because some of them were stuck. We couldn't get them out.
It could have arc welded itself to
They-
the conduit.
One of them did. That's why we had to leave and abandon one of the conduits, because they were steel conduits.
Yeah.
It welded itself right to the side.
Oh,
And the other ones we did plow, you could see where it had burnt on the sweep.
Wow.
Cleared those lines that were full of mud, full of water.
Yeah.
So that, just recipe for disaster.
How old is that conduit? Was it always steel?
Yeah, it's since they put the original transformers in, so I'm thinking it had to be at least
Suspenders.
70s, so maybe 50, 60 years old.
Was that a failure of insulation on the wire? Do you think?
Salt water does a lot of different things to a lot of different pieces of material. I gotta think it's sitting in water all these years, it heating up and cooling off, heating up and cooling off. It just made the rubber so
degraded.
rigid and friable, that you could see where it had bent. That's where the wires were exposed. The ones we were able to pull out, we could actually see the wires were kind of melted away.
So it probably was a failure due
Sure, due to the insulation.
to,
But
So-
to me, the important highlights here were, first of all,
quickly it goes.
again, excellent personnel working for the town of Darien. Eyes open, ears open, acting accordingly. We had a backup generator that we could pull in and use to have still a second means of power should the first means of power go
Back up
out.
to the backup.
We had an electrician immediately come out, help. We had
Backup.
Eversource out there with 5 trucks. They had to drive to Massachusetts and pick up a transformer and bring it back. We had to drive to wherever the electric supply house,
Middletown, yeah.
Middletown, to get the wire that we needed.
They opened
The
up on a
excavator
Sunday
out there
for us.
Digging the
to
trench
get
on a
it.
Sunday.
Yeah,
Was
it
it
was,
EW or which?
no, it was a private company. Is it EW?
Yeah.
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 They, huge
They're
facility
nice-
they
they're
opened
nice
up for us.
people.
And this is why, working with people that you work with frequently, this is where loyalty pays off
Mhm.
over nickels and dimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had, no complaints
Yep.
about the way things were taken. I mean, it takes a long time to get those things repaired. The wires are, they're about, they're as thick as 2 of your fingers, and it's all copper, and it doesn't bend, so it was all
pain.
pre-cut for
It's
us
pain
as
to
we
do.
got up there.
Who gets the scrap on that? That's nice
About
copper.
two grand for the stuff we pulled out.
Yeah.
No, he already got the scrap.
Not,
It didn't pay for the repair.
we made sure that got there, we got the
I just
check.
had to ask.
The material cost us about 9 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Labor was double that.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah.
So, that's just for the electrician, but he was there since 3 in the morning.
Well, at least it
Till
wasn't
Yeah,
seven.
on a Sunday.
Yeah,
like January.
I'm not even
Emergency
gonna,
condition.
I'll just check the hours on it, but I'm
Yeah,
never,
yeah, exactly.
no way.
Um,
That was that.
All right.
Phase 2 rehab, we just had one day left of punch list items. They're actually gonna be here tomorrow. They're doing some holiday testing on some of the manholes. And then we have a final pay request coming right after that, at which time we'll release the retainage. Lindsay's fine with that, with the final inspections they've done. They've kept up with everything. The only thing that I have left is just the warranty inspections that happen next year at this time.
Okay, great.
All right.
100%, it's a good number.
Phase 3, they're gonna bid the week of June 9th, she tells me. Keeping my fingers crossed.
That's next week?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
all right. The,
Did you enjoy the contractor we worked with for phase 1? How was their performance?
yes,
Two.
yeah, listen, they, both companies that we've had in here so far have done a great job. The
Yeah.
camera companies that come in have done a great job, some a little faster than others, but they're starting to get a feel for working down here a little bit more.
Yeah.
National Water Main, In Situ Form, both bigger companies. There's not a whole lot of companies left that do this, so
It's like a growing market.
but having Arcadis situated in, White Plains, Middletown, Wallingford, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, they, all of those companies that work in those areas, they have
Familiarity with
interacted
Arcadis
with
drawings and, yeah.
and know who they're dealing with and who the people are that need to be watched more and the ones that don't, just that goes a long way with us.
Yeah,
It saves us from having to be out there every day, every hour they're there.
yeah.
So, but looking forward to that bid getting out.
Yeah, fantastic.
Update on the Stanford WPCA nitrogen credits. That number that you see on the paper is incorrect.
Okay,
I got a new one for Bill Brink today. It's actually about $1,000 higher.
okay. So
And-
540, but we get what percentage of that?
Probably about 15%.
Roughly 15%. So that's
Seven-
$80,000.
And that's a pretty good,
Yeah,
pretty
it's
good
real
number.
money.
So
Can that be zero some years? You just don't know what the market is?
it went down to like 127,000 2 years ago.
It doesn't go down to nothing, but it actually, if it starts getting low, it's actually it's a net negative because there's a cost to create the denitrification and nitrification process. So if you're not getting a reasonable amount of money back, it doesn't make sense to do it at times. Because you
Okay.
need extra air, and I believe Stanford also uses
Are you not
micro
under
seed
a requirement to do it, or?
to a point.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess the
going past
requirement
that.
is you have to pay if you're on the wrong
Basically,
side.
what a nitrogen credit is
Yeah.
you have some plants that aren't,
Yeah,
you have,
I understand.
that don't make it and some that do. And so they have to buy these credits, and that's where it comes from. This is not from the state, this is
Yeah.
from other plants
Yeah,
that
I
are,
understand.
so the whole pool becomes a net zero.
I think Stanford, when they redid their facility, set themselves up to
Yes.
make the best bang for their buck
And
out
they
there.
are at the top of the list every
And they've
year.
been doing it every year.
Most of the year, a lot of
Every
years.
year. So,
That's cool.
that's a good thing for us.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Any other questions for the superintendent? Any other information from you guys, gentlemen? All right, if we're ready to move on, I could either, Bob, hand the gavel to you as I recuse myself for
Yeah,
item number 5. In the past, in your little run on low today, do you want
Okay.
Reese to function as acting
Please.
chair for the remainder of the meeting?
Next month. we can-
Okay.
We'll-
All right.
We'll be all done. We can-
Is there any new
Next month.
business? Are you leaving?
I am.
Oh,
Okay.
you're leaving?
Is there any new
I
business?
actually have new.
Oh, you have a new business?
Okay.
Something that I was asked to bring up.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. So we're
We're
gonna,
going to new business first?
yeah, we'll do hit new business.
You asked me to bring up West Avenue?
Yeah, I thought we would do that after number 5.
Is it gonna take a while?
It may take a little longer than one would think.
I guess.
Plus, I think we have some people in the audience that maybe are here for number 5.
Yeah, I know, that, I was trying to leave, because I'm.
Oh, you want to go?
recusing.
Go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, is
Let's
10
bring it up to
minutes?
new
Is
business
it
then.
5
We can do
minutes?
that.
Is it
We'll keep it short.
I'll make a
Okay.
motion
I'll
to
keep
go
it
into
short.
new
I'll
business.
second it.
Okay, all those in favor? All right, we're in new business.
Who was first and second?
Susan.
I made the
Two.
motion.
Susan and Reese?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You want me to?
I'll do it. No, thank you. We're talking about West Avenue.
Yes,
Okay. So 209 West Avenue,
219?
which is the
209.
location right across from Fairfield Avenue that 2 months ago we told them we wanted to connect outside the house in front of the building.
Yes.
And
we've come across a couple issues, not just with this and some other ones that are, the situations that they're coming across with some of these
ADUs.
requests by the sewer commission to do certain things are
Okay.
causing a hardship on the site. And I
Okay.
say that as in, they're running into shallow piping. This one in particular.
Okay.
And I started to think about, the reason why we're doing certain things, and I had a discussion with Bob, and, I agree with him, common sense, if you can, keep your connections where it can't harm you. But in retrospect, I'm looking at, if they can connect in a place where we get proper depth, it's inside, outside, plumbing code allows it, it's done and inspected by our building officials. Why should we stop them from providing a cost-effective method to do their work on site and provide us a better product for the new homeowner or the next one to come along, that we have proper depth, it doesn't freeze? Why are we using funky insulation? We're pouring concrete over it.
Well, so this-
Why are we doing that?
So it goes to, where is our guardrail on technical questions versus the reason it's before us, which is a separate structure on a site using the one lateral.
Correct.
And I think there's merit to that discussion, right? We happen to have qualified people on board right now, but we may not always. And we will always have qualified people in your department to make sure it's in, compliant with our regulations, dairying regulations, plumbing code, that sort of thing. So I think that's the crux of the question, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really the reason it's before us is, should we allow a second building to be connected to the single lateral? That's effectively why it's coming to us. So I guess we'll open it up for discussion. You have any thoughts?
Having read today's packet, the person who had the issue with their sewage ejector, which is what you'd have here, you'd have them daisy chained.
Yeah.
Because you'd be pumping from one grinder to another.
Yes.
First, to me, the first thing you need is the first one needs to have a smaller pump curve and a smaller tank than the second one. We don't want it to overwhelm it. But my issue is, if it's two different owners and you have a situation like happened in the packet where it burned out because there was rags in it, it just seems like it could turn into a bad situation really fast in someone's basement, and then who be blaming who? So I would really try and stand by accepting the extreme. I would want them to be connected in front of the house and not pumping now to another pump in another building. That, I think, is just, it's one thing if you're pumping to gravity in that front house, but pumping to another pump, it just doesn't sit too well with me.
I think this, I'm sorry, I don't want to jump in, but you guys have always been open to discussion like this. I think it goes back to your point, Craig, where is our, they call it authority, where are our limitations, where are our guardrails? What should we be recommending? What should we be authorizing? What should we be denying? And where do we stop that?
We just saw a house on Long Neck Point where that road goes down. They had 3 different systems, basically, 3 pumps going to something. And we did do a distribution box type system there. They didn't pump into one house from the other to the other daisy chain, did they?
Well, again, but on this, so we're not aware of what, say it's Anthony that goes out to the site, that looks around and sees what's there, and he's understanding that it's this depth and not that depth. So we're designing by committee with not even all the information and in some cases not the expertise. That's the line we gotta figure out where the right place is. Now,
And I think we do it with, I mean, the development we're gonna talk about soon, we think we do that we put the onus
Yeah.
on the property owner, developer, engineer to come to us and say, this is what we'd like to do. Our engineer says it makes perfect sense. And Bob, I don't disagree with you. Anytime you can go outside the building to gravity, you don't have to do pumps, I'm all for that. Engineers don't want to do pumps, they don't. But if you're gonna put them in, you have to have the qualified people that are willing to take the risk, put their license on the line and sign off on it at the end, taking the responsibility. If it does go bad, who are they gonna go after? And I just don't think this commission is that their responsibility is there.
so I will say, we do have our own local town of Darien requirements relative to sanitary sewers, that a few of those requirements go above and beyond code. So we could have that in our regulations, in our policy, in our technical standards. At very least, a strong recommendation that when feasible, you're not putting a pump into a pump, right? When feasible, you're making connection for accessory structures outside the home, so we could add it to the list, which gives you guys the ability to say, no, this is what you're required to do. Tell us why you can't, prove to us you can, kind of thing.
I mean, in the event you end up permitting somebody to pump from one pump to another, let's say in another owner's property, could we require a hold harmless clause?
I don't, I'll just say right now, I don't like going pump to pump. I don't think
Well,
it's
I
the smartest
don't
move, I
like
don't
it
think
either,
it's,
but if-
I don't think it's the, you can always tie in
To a Y, something.
to downstream. You can always put backflow valves and
Yeah.
gate valves on
Yep.
them. That to me is the way we run our own low-pressure systems down Long Neck Point, Pear Tree. I mean, they're all done the same way, right? They're tied into a main, and they're not pump
Yeah.
to pump to
Yeah.
pump.
Okay, I don't know the whole
Hold on a second,
situation.
Hold on a second. I just also want to just point something out. The reason that we're talking about this really has to do with ADUs and just give me a little leash here, please. Is that's going to be on a single piece of property under single ownership, ADU and homeowner. We're not talking about this guy pumping over to this guy's
Okay.
property, and we're not talking about different owners. Theoretically, it's one owner that's responsible for
Okay.
everything. So I just want to make sure that that's why it's coming to the surface.
Theoretically.
Well, hopefully not, but right now.
Okay. All right, well, we also installed a water line at where I work. HDPE insulated that is good to minus 30 degrees above ground. So I don't believe that it's an impossible situation, what they have there. They could do something
I
along
didn't say it was
those.
impossible, I said it was cost prohibitive in some situations. He's got a small yard, what if we run into a situation where the length is so long and the insulation costs so much and the depth is so shallow? We handcuff the guy into forcing him to do something that,
Well, but if it's that long, then the odds are you're not gonna be able to even get it from building to building. Because coming around a building is not gonna be that far. Sorry, in my opinion.
Oh.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, but that can't be just option B. It's gotta be more like E.
And maybe some properties don't accommodate an ADU.
then we wouldn't have to worry about,
But you're getting to that point.
I mean, at the very least, the ADU is, especially if is gonna have to have an alarm in it from the front unit.
Right. Don't.
Where if
Yep.
where if that starts going off, it's gonna have to have an
So-
alarm, and the pump in the ADU is not gonna be able to pump.
Shut up.
So I'll concede. You may be right. You may be 100% right. I think the question before us is, what is the question? Why is that even on our agenda, right? If it was just a new house getting built and they were building a new service connection out to the street, we wouldn't see it, period. The only reason that application is on our agenda is to say, hey, can we put a second structure into the same lateral?
It's not, I don't mind the lateral. It's
Yeah.
pumping, basically you're pumping
Yeah.
sewage
Into
into
the
someone,
structure.
into another building's basement.
Yeah.
And you're counting on the
But the other
ejector
thing-
pump from that basement pumping it out.
And you can have that in a single-family residence, because you can have fixtures in a basement
Yep.
that Johnny pump up to a gravity line out to an E1 in the front yard that then pumps out to the street. You can have the same situation in a single-family residence that we never even saw.
Okay.
So I think that the relevant question is not over, is it technically good or bad? It's technically good. It's what is our role as the commission in terms of why is that here and what decision are we making?
How are we dealing with the
Okay,
pool
but-
houses? Similar?
I mean,
Can you pump your pool house into your main? And then-
to what point can you just say, okay, the homeowner made the decision, and then when it fails,
No. There's a whole department that covers sewer permits, that inspects them, that makes sure they're done right.
There's a whole building department, the plumbers have, and
Yeah.
the interior. I hear what you're saying, Bob, and I say it again, I agree with you. I don't think we should ever allow a pump-to-pump system, ever. If
Where
that's
the
the only
second
restriction
pump
we
is-
have, figure it out, guys, but you're not going
Like
daisy
you're
chaining
saying.
your pumps. Because
Yeah.
then it eliminates, I'd say, about 50% of your worries right now.
well, daisy chaining is one thing. Daisy chaining where one of them, you're pumping, basically you're pumping sewage into someone's basement. That just,
I'm making
I just make the
but I'm-
statement and it sounds
Craig
wrong.
just showed you,
Do
you
that
could
in
make a
your house.
connection in the basement,
but it
and it
never
works
left the
just fine.
house. There.
What's that?
In your scenario, it never leaves the house, so you're not pumping it into another structure's basement.
Yeah.
But if the pumps were in parallel.
Again, I'm not arguing the technical.
Right.
I'm arguing
Policy.
why is it here before us,
Okay.
and what is the decision we're making?
It's here before us because it was put in front of us, and now,
But the question that was put in front of us is about the structure, not about the design, not about the technical design. and
we made the
its
decision,
execution.
and they're saying it's a hardship, so it is back to us. They've
Well-
come to us basically with an appeal.
They have
of our
not, because it's
decision.
not on the agenda as an appeal of the decision. I think
No.
you're talking big picture
I
policy.
brought it in front of you because now we're doing a special design for a pipe that doesn't meet our depth requirements, and if it freezes, it's gonna come back on us because we approved it, and I'm not comfortable with that.
Okay.
And I think we need to back off designing these things and have us say, this is what you have to, this is what you can do,
Yeah.
you need to make that work.
Yeah.
And that eliminates Darren and I having to explain every scenario they throw at us. Well, what if we do this? Wait, no, this is what you have to do. You need to get, and you need to make it work. And it goes to the other one we spoke last week, 401 Mansfield, is the same situation. We made them tie into the gravity line and there's another E1 pump. We daisy
No,
chains
no,
these pumps.
no,
Let me
it's a
finish,
diff-
let
it's a
me
different
finish.
situation.
It's not. It's pump to pump, and we talked about having to size the pump particular so it doesn't overload the other pump. Why aren't we tying just downstream in the force main? Why, we do these low-pressure force main projects all the time. Why are we forcing a pump into a pump? And again, that makes us responsible for reviewing the design on which size pump to
By the way,
put.
on that Mansfield one, I was wrong. I thought it was a part of our low-pressure force system. It's not. It's
It's not.
actually just pumping out to gravity.
Yeah,
I looked at it after.
yeah,
Oh,
and
no,
I called
that's
Darren
too
the next
bad.
day.
Oh, that poor kid, I don't know.
So,
So,
you know,
yeah, that was my
and he's
other-
trying
I know.
like nobody's business to find a pump and everything. Right now, it's, again, creating a hardship
Yeah.
because of, the discussion that was had about how to make connection. Again, maybe we don't belong in that lane.
Yes.
When I
should
say
not
we, I
be-
mean all of us. We
We should
don't
not
belong
be
in that.
designing the system. We should be saying, here are the standards to which you need to comply.
Yep.
And the first choice is, we keep everything outside. That's, I want to make it very visible that this is what the sewer commission and staff are looking for. Let's common sense this, and I agree with you, Bob, you go outside the gravity wherever you can. Now, your next choice is there existing system so far away? Is there a hardship? Is it that you want to tie inside your building? Well, the plumbing inspectors, the plumbing code have things for that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's allowed to have ejector pumps, you can call them Johnny pumps, ejector pumps
I don't know
in the
why they
basement,
got it.
pump up to gravity. That, they allow that, and they inspect for that. So,
Cellar. Let's make some-
So if you could wave a magic wand, what would our policy be?
I would start with, we're not gonna do pumps in series.
Yeah.
You know, that's not gonna happen. You are going to show us that there's no possible way that you can do it outside and meet our requirements, 4-foot depth, away from the water main, 10 by 10 feet, any restrictions caused by ledge or unsuitable soils, those type of things. If it causes you to not be able to go a certain area, then your next choice is whatever your next choice is. Hey, I have to go into the basement and tie it to my gravity line there.
So you want us to add these standards that may be more stringent than the plumbing code to our local requirements? So that
I do, I think it's.
you can just hand those over and say, do it like this.
Yep.
But we're not
And come
telling
back to me
you
if you're having a
to
trouble.
do something, yeah.
But have your engineer and you guys design, your plumber, you guys design this. But this is what we're looking for.
Yeah. And then
Because
you
we feel
always
this is the
have-
best
And
approach.
you have the latitude, as you have demonstrated in the past, to to review an engineered solution that doesn't fully comply.
I think that would be the magic wand I would wave. I think I'm just trying to take some risk and liability
So he's,
off of
he's
us.
trying to give you what you want, but also take it out of our hands
I
to discover,
I understand now,
decide,
I'm a little slow on the
push.
pickup today, sorry.
I think that sounds.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, bring it next month, bring a policy.
So this is almost always gonna happen with the ADU is a lower elevation than the existing structure, and they can't use gravity to get to the existing structure with the ADU?
You call it ADU, pool house would probably fall in the same categories.
Yeah.
You're gonna, if
Accessory structure.
you have an accessory structure of any kind, you're not, contiguous with the main building and you can't go through, and you're gonna go outside. There's gonna be some things that we're gonna make sure that, and again, Bob, to your point, you use some common sense when you're starting to lay this stuff out. You just don't
Yeah.
slap it together.
Yeah. All right,
Draft a policy.
Can I ask you one question?
I guess so.
Just one?
Well, because I actually had a second part of the new business, but
Yeah.
it kind of depends on knowing what you now know about 401
I wouldn't have
Mansfield.
been as restrictive as I was.
Do you think we could actually rule without them present? Because we asked them to go to get an engineer, and I don't know. if-
Well, I didn't ask them to do that. We asked them for information.
Okay,
but
we asked, you're correct, they said, that you're correct, they said the engineer, we asked information.
Have you talked to those guys?
Numerous times.
Okay.
That's kind of why I brought these two forward, because I think, I'd like you to allow me to
Work.
straighten these two out
But,
and draft that
because knowing
policy.
what I knew, come the next day,
Yeah,
I would have
as I would have.
rendered a motion.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm asking, can we go into
Well-
that and new business as old
Okay,
business?
yeah, let's bring up, what's the address?
401
401
Mansfield.
Mansfield.
Okay, someone call that to new business.
What do you mean, call to me?
I'll make a motion to go
Motion.
into 401 Mansfield as new business.
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay. And perhaps there's a motion that deputizes the superintendent to make sure
Authorize.
the connection is done properly and to his standards.
Yes, but we have made kind of the recommendation, because what they wanted, the house goes gravity into an ejector pump
Correct,
that goes out to the street all by itself.
correct. And he's saying just bring
And-
the force mains together out to the street.
And that's what I would have made the motion.
Yes.
I was under the understanding that it was low pressure in
And
the
it's
street.
not,
and
it's
it was-
gravity.
Yes.
Yes.
So had I known that, I would have made that motion.
Sounds like a
Well,
motion.
why don't we just make the
Right.
motion that staff can figure this out? We're allowing the pool house to be connected, and they can
Take all
manage
the-
the
Is
connection.
that what you want now, or?
Take all the information that I just heard and make that
All right.
the solution.
Yes.
I can do that.
That would work for.
Okay, that works. I'm just saying if you
Yep.
wanted us to
All right, so.
make our motion, we could.
Well, yeah, I would say make a motion.
Make
Yeah,
them-
because you made one at the last and told them to do something
Yes.
different.
So
I think this one
can I have
is.
a motion that
more consistent.
allows staff, that allows the superintendent.
Based on new
to-
information.
Based on new information, to amend our decision from the last meeting as he sees fit.
amend connection.
Yeah, on the connection. The connection is allowed with the details of the service to be worked out by staff.
Kind of you to look that up.
That sounds like.
Well, I asked Aaron, because it was right
All right, so
after.
it sounds like Peter just made the motion.
Okay.
No, well, that.
And I'll second it.
Is the motion.
Susan seconded. Are you clear enough on that motion? Want me to repeat it? You're good?
Yes.
Okay.
That's,
Any further
that's
discussion?
Mr. Hill's motion.
Two.
You said it, but it's
Actually,
Hill's
Peter
motion.
made
Peter made the
Peter
motion,
made
I
the motion.
seconded
Peter's-
it.
You're making the motion?
No,
No,
Peter.
Peter made the
Peter
motion.
made the motion,
Second.
This Peter.
Susan
He
seconded.
Peter made the
quietly,
motion?
Yeah.
quietly, he
He
made the
did very
motion.
quietly.
Yeah.
Okay, so, if you don't mind, the motion is to allow staff to amend the connection requirements for 401 Mansfield.
Correct.
Right, negating our previous.
That was
He had it sounded like
Peter.
half a sentence. How do you do that?
He was so quiet.
Yeah, no,
Not
it's just
casual.
writing.
They can blame me.
Because
listens more than he talks, that's
he only had this much, Craig, he only had this much room,
Yeah,
so it was
he's
out of
right.
necessity.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Okay,
I'll vote.
motion passes. All right. We done with new business? All right, acting chair,
Reese.
Mr. Hutchison, have a good evening. It's a pleasure as always.
Enjoy your time off.
Sorry I didn't let
Thanks
you
for a
leave
good
10
meeting
minutes
so
ago.
far.
What's that?
Sorry I didn't let you leave 10 minutes ago.
Oh, it's all right. It was good that we stayed.
All right, Mr. Flaherty's left the room. I'm Reese Hutchison. I'll be running the rest of the meeting. At this point, we'll call number 5, 104 and 108 Old Kings Highway North, proposed multifamily development, discussion and action, connection to sewer and sewer capacity analysis, and peer review.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Or I guess evening. maybe.
We're getting there.
For the record, Kurt Lowenstein, I'm a licensed professional engineer in Connecticut with Land Tech. Our office is located in Westport. I'm here on behalf of the property owner. We were retained to do the site civil components of this project. As you mentioned, as you read it in, this is for a multifamily development. Currently, the site is 2 lots, 104 and 108 Old Kings Highway. The proposal would be to merge the lots, raise the 2 existing structures on site. If you've been by the site, you know, they look like single-family residents. I think it, you know, throughout the years, it's kind of shifted. There may have been, you know, some kind of office use in there.
Yes,
But
there was.
generally speaking, you know, it looks like a single-family residence, but minimal flows from the existing site. So like I said, we'd like to merge the lots, build 2 new multifamily structures. It'll be 8 total units, so 4 units per building. Each unit will be 2 bedrooms, so we have 16 total bedrooms, what we're looking at here. Before I go into the numbers and the analysis of it, I just would like to note that we do recognize that there was a math error in our report as far as the proposed flows. We had inadvertently used the number of units versus number of bedrooms. So the numbers that Arcadis provided in their report, we concur with as far as the proposed flows. So for the purposes of the discussion that I'm going to be having with you, I'm going to be referring to the Arcadis report as far as the proposed go. There is an existing lateral. We'll be providing a new lateral that both buildings will be connected to. We did get some comments from staff that they would like some things added, clean outs in a common manhole where the 2 laterals coincide, which is right in this area, just to the left of the existing culvert crossing that brings you access to the site. So those all certainly can be incorporated into the plans.
Wait, where is it now?
So this is the lateral, and this is where the connection between, so building A, building B.
Okay.
And then staff has asked for a common manhole here.
A man, okay.
Yeah, this will be gravity.
All right.
The lateral will be gravity. So a manhole and then some.
Can I ask, and I've
Sure.
seen that flood too many times, can I ask that be a watertight manhole?
Sure. Certainly.
Because that culvert, I mean, basically you walk down the street and look in the
No, I got
storm
it here.
drain
I
and
got it here.
there's
I just didn't get a chance to look.
water always within
Absolutely.
2 feet of ground level.
Exactly,
Any
yeah.
storm surge.
We're well aware of some of the historic flooding issues in there, and I know this is not necessarily purview of sewer commission, but for the benefit of your comment, we have agreed and working through, we've already been through EPC and planning and zoning at this point, and part of the issue that's causing that flooding there is that there's an existing culvert, so the flow goes this way.
Yep.
This culvert has not been taken well care of. It's a large culvert, but there's debris and trash in there. And then the next culvert down, there's another residential property next door to us. My client has offered to clean out both, obviously what's on his property, but also the neighbor property as well, which will improve the flows through there. So some of that flooding that you certainly have witnessed there
But then it goes
will
to
be.
Dennis and across the street, it goes underneath the highway, and that's backed up, so it's a little bit more than just one manhole. It's
Yes.
a systemic issue.
It is, but I think a lot of the relief will come from the clean. But nonetheless, a waterproof manhole is totally fine. It's certainly doable, so
I mean,
we
I would
can
think it
incorporate
just
that into there.
stands to reason if it's a reasonable, it's not, we're not asking for the world there.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you, and we're happy to
Okay.
incorporate that into the plan. From an analysis standpoint, my office met with staff early on, and I think all of you were on the commission when the 7 Sedgwick project was done, which is just down the street from here.
Yes.
They permitted us to use that same flow monitoring and the 2 points of study. So if you recall, study point 1 was right at the end of the Mechanic Street sewer shed, and then the study point 2 was on Boston Post Road, just as you come under the railroad bridge there, and that's kind of the end of the Mansfield Lower sewer shed. So we kept those same study points. It's the same
And the
analysis.
reason you didn't choose to study the manhole that surcharges in front of 7 Sedgwick is?
That in our discussions with staff, that was what the 2 points of study that they had asked us to.
So I have a question for
analyze.
staff. Why did you choose these 2 study points?
Because we've had information previous on those 2 locations. We've had meters at those 2 locations. We've had other studies that come down through the sewer system, study through those points. So we have a common denominator, and we're able to compare impacts as they all are added through there. Instead of moving study points around, you can actually compound the developments and actually come up with a steady number that shows you your impact to that area.
But if there's a manhole in between that's surcharging, how does that figure in to your studies, to your studying? Do you understand my concern, constant concern
It's
here?
been a concern since the first time we had this project
I know.
over there.
So that's my point. I don't understand why you're not looking at that manhole as somebody who's not an engineer.
I guess my question to you is, what are your expectations to find if we study the manhole that surcharges during heavy rainstorms?
That there's some problem in this run of pipe that you're saying can handle all of this capacity, but there's a point somewhere in between study point 1 and study point 2 that has, no, actually, these are both beyond. There's a point before you get to study point 1 that has a problem.
And I thought when we had met for Sedgwick, that we had a discussion with Lindsay about what that system does over there and how it reacts to it, and how the study points show different things. And these anomalies of large storms that we've had the problem over there are not an indication of capacity in that line under wet circumstances, not flooded circumstances. I think that's the conversation we wrapped ourselves around.
Okay. I just have to keep being reminded why
I also think that,
this isn't an issue.
okay, if you think of it a math equation,
Yeah,
all right. Sedgwick is the sum. You want to know the components adding to that, and if you put a flow meter at Sedgwick, I thought of this as he was speaking, it's going to be full. You want to see the other ones and see the rise in those that contribute to the full. So you want to see where the problem is coming from. Looking at the problem is too late. Yes, no, maybe?
Backwater. That's causing a backwater condition, and analyzing it or actually trying to predict reactions to adding more flow to it is worthless. It's underwater, so you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
That meter wouldn't give you anything. You need meters on the ones that are coming into it because you can see the rise there. At the point there where it surcharges, the meter's already gonna be overwhelmed. It's not gonna give you any useful data.
But back to our original discussion, we talked about monitoring during wet conditions and trying to monitor and analyze during major storm events are two different things, and you have to look at it that. Looking at a major storm, we have manholes all over town. That 7-inch storm event, we had manholes popping all over the place. And I wouldn't analyze it during that, whether I could do development or not.
I see.
I want to do it when the groundwater's higher. We've had some rainstorm events. You know, those are things that you want your system, you say pressure tested, but you want to see where the water's coming in and is there capacity loss during wet conditions? And we do have some. That's why we're doing the manholes lining, the pipe lining, and so on, watertight manholes and so on. Those things are going to protect our system even more to allow the capacity to be used for development, not for carrying rainwater and groundwater.
Okay, thanks.
So based on the two study points that we have, again, study point 1, end of the Mechanic Street sewer shed, study point 2, just under the railroad bridge. The current capacities respectively, study point 1 is 1.47 CFS, and study point 2 is 2.83 CFS. Study point 1 is a 12-inch pipe, study point 2 is a 15-inch pipe. So then when we go and look at our analysis for what we're adding to it, so it's 16 bedrooms in total, utilizing the Connecticut Health Code for building, or for bedrooms. Your first 3 bedrooms are at 150 gallons per day, and then the balance of that for multifamily is at 125 gallons per day. So that equates out at the 16 total bedrooms to just over 2,000 gallons per day as your average daily flow that's being added.
Did they just switch that? I've never seen it that way.
Yeah, that was a fairly recent, I'd say the 2024 maybe was when they enacted
A
that.
little over a year ago, January 2020.
I mean, I think 150 is too high, but doing it this way doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that was a recent change. I talked to the state health department about it because it was kind of odd to us too that they would now make this change, but
Well, 'cause
that's
it's basically saying that it's a one house, and oh yeah, you're only gonna have 3 bedrooms that are full all the time, but it's not that way. If you're gonna rent a 2-bedroom apartment or condo, you're probably gonna have people in both bedrooms.
the explanation that I've gotten from the health department centers around the more high efficiency water use features that you get into the new development. That 150 gallons per day has been in the health code, decades and decades, when they, fixtures just weren't as good. So the 150 and even the 125 still could be on the high, but that's kind of the compromise as I understand.
Yeah, no, I understand I just, picking one number and running it all the way out makes more sense than this. It's not you, it's.
I hear
we're
ya.
getting a DPH.
I gotcha. So adding in our 16 bedrooms, we're looking at just over 2,000 gallons per day. Keeping consistent with the TR16 manual, we applied a peaking factor of 5.7. This was similarly used down at the 7 Sedgwick for a multifamily like this. That gives you just shy of 12,000 gallons per day, but the relevant number that we want to know is CFS, right? We want to know pipe capacity. So that's roughly 0.02 CFS. And then let's, compare it to what the current full capacity of the pipes are. So study point 1, 1.47 CFS at a 12-inch pipe. Study point 2, 15-inch pipe, 2.83 CFS. Currently in those pipes, based on the flow data that was provided by Arcadis, study point 1, which is the 12-inch pipe, is flowing at just shy of 37% full. So it's 0.54 CFS of the 1.47 full. And then study point 2 is running a little bit more full, which makes sense because you got a few more sewer sheds that combines into that. That's flowing just shy of 70% full. So that's 1.93 CFS versus 2.83 full capacity. Our project, even if you take out the existing flows, which are pretty minimal, you're only looking at a 0.02 CFS increase on top. So that would bring your totals for For study point 1, that brings you up to 0.56 CFS. Again, you're still kind of at that 37% capacity. And then at study point 2, that brings you up to 1.95, which you're still at that, kind of 69%. You're looking at a 1% or less increase, even if you take out the existing flows compared to what's currently in those lines. So, our conclusion is there's sufficient capacity. Arcadis echoes that in their report that there's sufficient capacity. Even going as far, if you read towards the end of theirs in their conclusion, they also took into account a bunch of these other new, larger developments that are soon or have just recently come into the lines. And they're still, confirming the same finding that we have, is that there's sufficient capacity for this project to connect. So,
Did you add the proposed capacity for Sedgwick into your analysis? Because it's already approved. Built.
We did not, because it hasn't been connected in there, but I did look at the numbers before today's meeting.
Makes sense, they've already poured concrete.
Yeah, so even doing that, you're still within, 1%.
How many units are there? How many bedrooms? 30?
For 7 Sedgwick?
Yeah.
I
Is it
don't remember
30?
off the top of my head.
2 bedrooms, 15?
Like 15 units?
2 bedrooms? So 30.
Yeah,
28 or
that's,
30, yeah.
sounds like in the ballpark. Yeah, I can't remember the exact numbers. It's been
I thought it was closer to 20, but
So that'd
I'm
be-
guessing, I don't
I'm
know.
only, I didn't follow
Give
it
or
at
take
all.
4,500 gallons a day.
Yep. And with a peaking factor of 5.7, it would be.
Well, that
I know.
is
See,
a little high.
Kurt, I'm going to ask you a weird question, because, when we did do Sedgwick, which this flows into, we had a lot of conflicting analysis and data, one from your firm that was very different than Arcadis.
Yeah, so
And we live in a world where I guess we're becoming naturally suspicious to experts. And we both sat on.
I remember because I was
planning.
actually here.
I know.
Because
We sat
I
on
was
planning.
filling, similar today, I was filling in for Andy on that one too,
Right.
and I do remember that. So if my memory serves me, the biggest difference from where our analysis was on Sedgwick, as far as capacity is concerned, and what Arcadis had, was we weren't aware at the time that there had been some recent lining done that changed the N value for it, and that actually is a huge difference in capacity.
Is the end value how slippery the pipe is?
Exactly.
Okay.
So if you have a
So
really
it's-
older, beat-up pipe,
So it's a Manning's
it's
Cove.
not going to flow. Exactly. It's not going to flow as easily through that. You have a freshly lined pipe, you really get
But it's a
some
little
good
smaller,
flow.
because it's lined.
I thought it was about timing. I thought
Yeah, I
the
thought
difference
it
was
had to
about
do with-
timing.
because-
Timing was the car wash.
Yeah.
No, no, it
I
was
could have
7
sworn
Sedgwick.
Craig said it was the timing.
Because
On
Land Tech
Sedgwick.
came in and said,
We did it based on an
We did 2 different
18-hour
ones.
window, which
There
is
you
a
go.
more conservative number.
okay, there
So
was,
it's
It was
assumptions.
we looked at it from kind of a belt and suspend, take the Manning's number out. We looked at it kind of the most conservative way
Yeah.
because of the nature of the area. 24 hours is certainly an industry standard acceptable number as
Okay.
well. So that was Arcadis did have it. They said we used
Right.
24, we had used 18. We're not going to quibble over that.
right, because you came first and said,
Yeah.
got just enough, and then you don't have enough. And then you came in and said, well, you were going to put you over with this development, and then Arcadis came in and said, oh, no, they're using the wrong timing or math or something.
It was
a
really
variable,
the
and
Manning's
you've got
number,
plenty of
if I
room.
recall, was the main driver of that big difference in the capacity. That
Oh.
really does change the calculus. It's one factor, but it
big.
when you're dividing by that little number, it does really impact those.
And there was also a drop too, wasn't there, on study point 2, a chimney sort of effect? The pipe up here, pipe down here? Is that what was going on there?
Arcade,
I'm
we
only-
didn't analyze it in that way. We didn't do like I think Craig had mentioned
Head.
something about like an HGL like type of calculation to it. Yeah, exactly. You get a little head, which is going to
Right,
push more
push.
the reality of it.
Yeah, you can pressurize the pipe.
This is kind of a simplified capacity analysis. Is really kind of how much can you fit through that pipe versus kind of the flow through the system. So Arcadis, I'm sure, has the full system fully built out in 3-dimensional, and they can kind of run those analysis through there. So that may have been something they included in the report. I can't recall.
When is a pipe full? At 86% or 100%?
It depends who you ask.
Well, I'm asking you.
It's well, the reason I say it depends who you ask because yes, 100% is the pipe full, but
Yeah,
you'll
but it-
find different municipalities will put a factor of safety on that. Like if the pipe is
It comes
I've
airbound,
seen-
right, at that point?
Yeah, and I've seen towns say if it's more than 60% full, that's considered full because they don't ever want to find where that real is. I've seen some towns say 75 and 80.
So
you know.
we're at 70% at study point 2, and you're only adding 1% to that 70%.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're looking for, our job as a commission is to protect the safety of everybody,
Yeah.
including the system. And where is our meter? We're all
Mhm.
looking for it.
Sure.
And it's difficult because there are a lot of variables that go into an analysis.
Certainly.
And it's like when we have a manhole that has popped, and we're wondering why. And I know it's complicated, and I know it's water driven. And you're right, you know, is it ground already saturated when it rains 2 inches? Is that worse than 5 inches when it's dry? Who knows? We sat on the Flood Commission in 2007. We sat on EPC. We've sat on Planning and Zoning. We've been I'm 25
Stormwater.
years now.
Yeah,
of, like,
stormwater.
struggling with trying to, trying to wrestle all the variables. And yet when we see a manhole pop, we've got a problem.
Yeah.
So
It's a tricky game with the sewer because, Ed hit the nail on the head. The I&I is really the big factor. Like if under normal conditions you have plenty of capacity and then a storm comes and you're popping manholes,
Right.
I&I. And my understanding is town of Darien has kind of taken on a huge capital improvement project to eliminate as much of that I&I as possible, which, all assumptions, aside, should, solve a lot. I mean, there's nothing's perfect, but certainly should solve a lot of the problems that you guys are having in some of these areas where you're
We need to
getting
get
a
rid
ton
of the sump pumps,
stormwater.
that's really
yeah.
the thing.
So phase 3, is that part of what we're going to be fixing in this sewer shed?
It's
Next
actually
year.
This sewer shed.
It is the soup.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be done before they tie it.
Break ground?
Do we have any numbers
I don't
from?
want to say that because Sean Shea's not here. He'd probably break ground tomorrow if he could.
I know he does.
No, I know.
I know
Yeah,
Sean
yeah, don't say that. Shaw's ready to go for sure.
Yeah,
but,
so
Alright.
before he ties in and starts flushing toilets,
What's that?
we should be.
He just saw you on TV.
I know.
this
I
time
know,
Sean.
he's, I know he's eager to go.
Yeah. And these are long processes to get these projects approved, I understand that. So we're just trying to get our fiduciary responsibility meter, and we're not engineers, Bob's pretty close,
I am
and
not
Peter's
an-
certainly the bigger brain than, we're very.
Well, I mean,
It's a
to go back to
sensitive
your, I think your initial question was where, do I feel, in my professional opinion, that the pipe is at the limit of capacity, right? What is full, so to
Right.
speak? I wouldn't consider 70% full
But
personally.
what would your number be?
I would say when you're reaching like that 85 to 90%
Where you
full,
get the
that's
turn-
that's where you want to start really thinking about an upgrade. Especially, I mean, a project like this is very incremental. That's adding, but let's say you were doing something like the Corbin district, like that's a major sewer driver there.
Yep.
Project like that, then if that's putting you to 90, then maybe you're thinking about it. But 70% wouldn't be where I would draw the line personally, but it's an engineer's opinion.
Which towns tend to be more conservative than others? Smaller towns, larger towns? Where's that meter? You've practiced all over the state.
Yeah, I'm
Who's
trying
the
to
most
think
conservative
who's the
and
more
Who's the most
conservative.
liberal?
So you're pressing
But
my
Westport.
memory.
No, I'm
Westport's
asking you
pretty
weird
conservative.
questions. Gonna
Yeah.
do this to Craig.
Yeah, no,
We're like
it's okay. I'm
brothers.
trying to think of who's really restrictive on. I don't know Greenwich's number. Greenwich is pretty restrictive on what, as far as their, you were talking about a lot of policy stuff prior to this application.
And they're requiring lateral inspections, 2 houses
Yeah,
now for
Greenwich,
building
for
permits.
example, if you go to just do a patio in your backyard, they want you to TV that line,
Yeah.
and if they find that it's an old clay tile pipe in there, you have to upgrade. I've had 2 or 3 in the last year that way. So there's towns like Greenwich that are very proactive in that. And there's towns like, I'd say Fairfield is a little less stringent in that.
Okay.
And they've got areas that they're working on too. So it's variable all over the state. I think a lot that drives it is when you have problems, if they have major areas that are problematic, that really synergizes folks, either within the town or public relations type of things, putting pressure to upgrade some things.
So have you looked at the existing infrastructure of the 2 houses, the laterals that are there now? Those are probably built in the 20s, 30s, 40s? I mean,
They're quite old. I don't know the exact
Maybe
date
even
on
older.
them. That's why we're proposing a new lateral there. Because it's hard to determine what
Just clean
the
it up.
viability of it is. We're going to do, 2 brand new multifamily houses here. If it were me developing it, I would want, you know, a brand new lateral, so I know that it's, you know, the best and the brightest of the time, so to speak. You know, I'm sure Sean would like it to be cheaper, but I think it's money well spent. The last thing you want is a sewer backup because some old pipe collapsed, and you know, this is just a better way to do it.
And Ed, we could condition that if one new lateral replace the two old ones, if they're proposing that.
The site plan proposes one connection out to the street. I think I only added was.
You wanted a manhole and then a couple
there.
clean outs, which is totally
Yeah.
fine, and it'll be watertight.
Yeah, I made a note too.
I still got the big one, I'm waiting for you to finish.
Sure. Yeah, I'm open to
So when I've
questions.
asked everyone, I gotta ask the same thing.
What is
I
that?
have to be consistent about storing it and pumping it.
Oh,
Would we
The
be?
question is,
Yep.
and I've asked it before, so I have to ask this time. In my opinion, and I voted with what I feel is my thought process, is that storing the sewage and pumping it in off hours is the proper way to maintain capacity in the system by basically having cars drive the highway all day long as opposed to having a rush hour.
Mm-hmm. So is your question, would we be open to doing that in this particular project, or just my general opinion on that?
Would you be, well, of course, would you be open to do it, or, I mean, you can give the other side of it, but I
Yeah, I
have
mean-
to ask the question, I have to be consistent.
No, that's a fair question to ask. I think in this case, it's demonstrated that there's sufficient capacity in the line. You know, for this is a very minor increase in flows. I think that's a tremendous financial and operational burden that would be put on development like this. I don't disagree that there could be some advantages to that in certain circumstances, but I think, you know, if I were, you know, to kind of play devil's advocate with you on that would be, you know, where do you draw the line? Does now every development need to hold their sewage, or does?
Yeah, because I think
Okay, so if you're being consistent with
You're maintaining
that.
the 70% because you're never gonna get rid of all the I&I, all the projects we do.
Mm-hmm.
So when it rains, you're gonna have an increased flow.
Sure. In some
I mean, that's the
instances, you will,
reality.
yeah.
You can tell me no, but we don't live
Well,
in a
no,
vacuum.
you'll never get 100% removal
We don't
by
live in a vacuum, and
Yeah.
with someone who, you know, I'll say where, but gets splashed with sewage on a daily basis, I don't have a problem with it. But
Mhm.
when you see a manhole surcharge and you see cars just driving through it, you know, willy-nilly,
Yeah.
I do have a problem with it. So
Sure.
I don't want it to happen.
I think we all have a problem with manhole surcharging. Nobody wants that.
So
But like
to
I said,
maintain capacity, if you're saying 70%, I mean, with I&I, when it rains, that
Oh.
70% is not so great.
well, I would offer, you know, is it fair then, you know, there's 70% in the pipe now, or just shy of 70% now. So why would this particular developer, the burden be put on them to maintain? You know what I mean? It's a question of if 70%, let's say the town took a perspective or a position that 70% was their deemed full. Well, then there's some responsibility of then the pipe would need to be upgraded in size again, and then who does it, who pays for it? Like, so your point is well taken, but it's just in practice, I don't know how you put that out to the public and to these developers. This is, like I said, I think it'd be a tremendous financial burden and an operational burden. I would prefer everything by gravity myself. I don't
Yeah,
really
I mean,
enjoy
gravity
having the
becomes
pumps.
out of sight, out of mind. I mean, I understand that, but to me, it's just a responsibility. I mean, like I said, I voted with that thought process, you know, on previous projects.
Mhm. No, and I
So,
can
I mean,
appreciate your position, and I don't disagree with you. Like if the goal is that we don't want to increase any or lose any capacity in those pipes, that certainly could be an option. I disagree that it should be, the burden should be put on you know, developers and homeowners, because you'd have to apply that across. It wouldn't just be for someone doing a multifamily development. It would be the neighbor next door is a single family residence. So if they're a 3-bedroom and they're building a 6-bedroom house or a 5-bedroom house, now they also need to hold their, pump their, you're being consistent with your argument, but I'm just pointing out that it becomes overly burdensome for folks to do any development on their property, and I don't agree that it's the right application for it here.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree.
That's totally fine.
Kurt, in your equations, you haven't netted out the existing use at all. You've just taken the proposed use, the 16 bedrooms times.
Well, because the existing use was minimal.
Well, it's office and it's something, so.
But they're abandoned.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it
Doesn't
as
matter.
if
It
you
has the
wanted
use that you'd
to,
model.
Okay.
so the way the analysis would typically done is the existing flows would be calculated.
Okay.
And then the proposed flows would be calculated, and you do a delta of it. So proposed minus existing
Well, you wouldn't
tells
flow-
you what the increase is.
You wouldn't flow monitor every site to get a number. You'd know the uses, and you'd use the same model.
Right, but it gets to the same number.
So what-
I'm saying if you ignored the existing.
What would to the office buildings that are formerly residences that are now used as offices, what would they generate for
About 300 gallons per day.
each one?
Office is very minimal. No, in total.
Okay, so it's not a hell of a lot.
It's very, very small. We looked at it Arcadis looked at it from an office standpoint. We looked at it from a single-family residential standpoint, which generates a little bit more flow. That's
Right.
about 600 gallons per day.
Okay.
But the reality of it is why I took that out is, assume like nobody's in these houses, which they may not be. It's pretty dilapidated out there.
I'm just.
We're looking at it as like, it's more conservative to look at it as the proposed flows are fully getting added instead of taking like a credit of, well,
Yeah.
there's already 300 gallons per day in this line. We're
Got it.
saying that there's zero coming off this site, or if you say there's zero coming off this site, and you add in the.
No, I
our
get
flows
it,
with the
okay.
peaking
So
factor.
your peaking factor you're going that, plus you're not netting anything off existing uses.
Exactly. Even doing it that way, which would be a more conservative analysis, the conclusion stays the same. There's sufficient capacity, and it's still very incremental. You're talking about, less than 1% for both points of study, as far as increase goes.
Now, the flow monitoring at both study points, is that done by time?
They put a meter in the pipe and they just let it run.
So 24 hours?
It's over many weeks.
Couple weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but
It's
you're,
almost 2 months.
what I'm really thinking about is like, a residences function differently than an office park
Mhm.
when someone would be using water.
Sure.
And how do you allocate that sort of flow to time?
The
Like
peaking
highway, like
factor.
traffic, like, if you had a 24-hour, it wouldn't tell you what 5 PM is gonna look like on 95 or 5 AM.
That's why they they look at it in a kind of an aggregate, because if you had office, for example, typical office, say it's 8 to 5, 9 to
Right.
5, you might have some sustained use. But the folks that are in the office are not at their house, so that house use would be low there. But then they leave their office and then they go home, and then the use is higher at the house, but it's basically zero.
Well,
at
that's
the
why I
office.
wonder, what is the current flow breakdown on those study points
Well, so you're
of different
asking-
uses?
So he's asking for the diurnal.
Oh,
peak.
that's, so then
See
you're
where I'm
getting into a
going?
much deeper study where you have to flow monitor each
By
individual
time.
site and.
By
you know,
time.
And.
No, I'm not being crazy, Ed. You can shake your head. It's a damn good question, because
It would be interesting to see.
if you had all office parks and all of a sudden half of them became residences, you would have a different curve for time of concentration at that pipe
Well,
of
you
use.
had-
But you would still have the same amount of flow going through that.
24 hours, sure.
You have,
But not at-
but office parks have more than one curve. There's a curve at, I'll say,
Oh, I'm not-
9 o'clock when people show up.
I get it.
Then there's
I get
another
it.
curve about 11:45.
I get it.
But you
And
want to
then
know
one
what
about-
helps correct all of that? Is the peaking factor.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yes.
And how you would like to apply that, and where you would like to apply that, because it gives you some latitude on saying, you know what? It used to be this, now it's this. Let me be a little more conservative.
So this is Super
Which
Bowl.
is what Kurt did with I'm not taking any credit for the existing, though you can think there was flow going down there at some time.
Well, it's
But
15%.
I'm not taking credit.
It's-
Yeah, you don't want to see the
it's
Super
very,
Bowl
very small.
halftime peaking factor.
Very small.
I'm sure it's
So-
sufficient.
So I think I think,
Right.
Kurt, I think we've seen peaking factors that are lower than that, the 3.4 or 3.5 in other studies.
So if you look at the TR16 manual, and I think, maybe they didn't include in this, but Arcadis usually does include that table out of it.
I remember
You know,
seeing that
It's a
from
terrible
before.
scan,
Yeah.
it's an old book, but you know, it has a, you know, X and Y, and you kind of track up, and it gives you a relative peaking factor. You'll see on many, you know, industry standard is 4.
Okay, 4.
But that chart does give you latitude for various, and in this case, in this area, Arcadis has consistently advised on a peaking factor of 5.7.
Okay, cool.
So, you know, to Ed's point, that is kind of how you equalize it in a specific area. Arcadis knows the sewer system much better than I do. You know, they've analyzed, I'm sure, your entire system at this point. And they're in the middle of, you know, they've done their I&I analysis of this. So a peaking factor of 5.7 is larger than a typical analysis as we would do it. Like I said, 4 is the standard. So this is compensating for, you know, what could be those kind of inconsistent. Because you do have a little bit of mixed here, but it is mostly commercial. I mean, next to us is Trader Joe's, you got the tennis club, Fuji's kind of across the street, but then we have a single-family residence next door. So it's you got a shopping center. It's a bit of a hodgepodge in this area.
I have a couple other questions, as I remember. One, do the units have garbage disposals?
I do not know. I would have to get back to you on that. I'd have to ask the architect on that.
Because it adds solids to the system. My other question is, do the units have separate water meters?
Probably not. I would imagine there'll be, each building would have its own meter.
Because separate meters would have a quicker indication if there was a leak in the unit.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. But I would imagine this would have, each building would have its own meter. I don't think the water company typically likes to have individual meters for units in these types of situations, usually per building. It's a little bit different than like how the gas company will do.
Sometimes there's sub-meters so that it's billed separately. So that's why I'm asking.
Landlords can do that now.
Yeah, I mean, that's an operational thing, and, you know, I'm not gonna speak for my client in that respect.
We just
It's
find
something you
good,
could
good
broach.
quick feedback.
Yeah.
Solves problems
Yeah, no,
faster.
I mean,
I agree. I mean, I
CRPs.
heard some of the, you
Yeah.
know, the asking for the adjustments on their bills. I know that you can catch a leak a lot faster that way, and certainly in where you have multiple units.
Insurance companies are asking for that more and more now.
I don't see it being a
Central.
bad idea, but, you know, I'm not on the rental,
Yeah.
you know, side of things, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that.
And do you see any, what have we missed?
No, I've watched this project go through the phases here. They've gone back a second time and did a redesign on it. We met back in, I think, October, November last year.
It's
Was
been
it
quite a while, yeah. We had a
fall?
couple rounds with
Just
EPC. We reduced the size of the buildings and the unit count from probably the original one that we met with you on.
No, I think and this did not meet the criteria volume-wise for flows to send it to Arcadis. It met the special area of concerns.
Yeah.
And that's why we sent it. That's why we had separate eyes on it, someone that knows our system, you know, better than we do right now. So I think we've kind of scratched everything right now to be comfortable, you know, as best we can be.
I have one more question for you, Ed, which has nothing to do with this application. With these study points, are these study points that Arcadis chose, and now these are the ones moving forward with every capacity study will be using their study points?
I think it's going to be probably a case by case. This one seemed to fit the project location. And I think that originally these study points, I thought it was from Land Tech, but they correspond. I didn't think Lindsay had an issue with the study point locations because we had information at those two spots to be able to compare our flows when we first started doing the study, what we were getting with regards to increases off of the development from existing to proposed. And we've used those numbers consistently now to look at and analyze our system. So we're comparing apples to apples now. And we keep adding apples, we're able to keep comparing those solutions that we have.
Is there a list in their huge study of all the study points that they studied? All the points they studied? Like you're calling this one study point 1. In their book, is this study point 1?
No, I don't believe that they picked out study points. They have meter locations, and to them, those are our study points for regards to flow through our system. That's what we're gonna compare our project later to. We'll put the meters back in those locations, and we'll try to mimic what the situation and field conditions were when we did it. Hey, how was the groundwater? Well, let's try to make sure we're during that type of ground period. Hey, what kind of rain did we get? Let's see if we can get a couple good storms during those couple months of metering. Because then we can compare those timings.
No, you know me, I'm a data person. I love the fact that there's a real reason why you're choosing these study points.
Well, the study
But
points were
I
selected
just
by
wondered if
by
there's
the
a
engineers
list.
where conveyance of flow come together, and you can go, okay, this is where, if we have a problem and we can analyze, this is where we do it.
So
This is where the
you choose them, not Arcadis.
The engineers, no, Arcadis did not, during their original study 5 years ago, did not pick these areas of study points. They were done for the projects that would have come forward.
So far.
7 Sedgwick.
I think that was the very first one, but I thought we used, the car wash also used these.
These two
And so
study
did
points?
this project. So now, we're comparing apples to apples.
Okay, thanks. I just need a lot of repetition to get
Are we,
through.
are we getting any results back from the first 2 rounds of fixing things that show that we're in a 5% reduction or 6, 7,
I
8?
think when Thorndale came through, the engineers showed that we were seeing a reduction during the same wet type of periods, if you will, at our pump station at Stony Brook.
Okay.
So when we put the meters back at the locations that are closer to the watersheds we're fixing, I anticipate we're gonna see some lower numbers. I hope we're gonna see some.
I know, we're all hopeful.
So we could take that 70% full pipe at study point 2 and maybe get it down to 65%?
It's not gonna change the flows in there. You know, the metering, I wouldn't want to change it unless there was some really significant difference. I always want to err, I mean, we've
you'd rather use
preached conservancy or being conservative through this whole process right now of using a higher peak
Yeah,
value.
I got it.
using a-
I think Land Tech was the most conservative.
Yeah.
Is Bob Oley still there?
No, Bob retired quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
I know he's still around.
One of
but
my favorites,
But
Bob
I
Oley.
think he lives down in like North Carolina or South Carolina. or
How about
something.
Anna Rising? Is she still working with you?
Anna? Yeah, Anna's still with us.
Good friend.
Yeah.
So,
She keeps,
I think this item, I think, has an action piece to it.
oh, it does?
So I guess from a level of comfort, we're going to be fixing areas that contribute to this. And I know this goes up Brookside Road-ish. And I think there are issues there. There's a lot of.
This is the Mechanic Street Brookside area that's getting treated as phase 3.
Just from topography and wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
I would be shocked
Is
if.
Birch connected or
Yeah.
Birch goes straight?
The Birch might go
On the
straight.
post road. This starts kind of there, doesn't it?
But it
A
could be.
little bit of the post road, it comes up Old Kings Highway where it touches the post road and comes down.
Jumps over the other side by Trader Joe's or something like that, too. I
It's
know
about
there's a
halfway
connection.
down on the sewer shed. This is like, this site is positioned about halfway down on the Mechanic Street sewer
Okay.
shed.
Yeah, but I don't think it does Birch. Birch would
Well, if we're
make
look-
it much bigger than that.
You looking for a motion?
Yeah, I guess. we're
I'll
looking
make
for
a motion that we approve the connection to the sewer, because the sewer capacity analysis indicates that it's, not going to overwhelm us. That we have sufficient capacity.
Any further discussion?
You have a second?
I need a second.
Second?
Now, any further?
Any further discussion? We never did that on P and Z.
No, we didn't. I know.
Bob?
No, I've asked my questions and
Thank you.
formulated my opinion.
I have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
All in favor?
All opposed? 3-1.
3-1-1, or
And abstained.
he's abstained.
Yeah, or recused.
Recused, yeah. I don't think he's abstained, he's recused.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
We
Say hi
appreciate
to
all the
Ann and
math,
tell her
too.
I want an email.
I
want lunch.
will. She owes you an email on something?
She owes me lunch. We all, not, she doesn't owe me a lunch, she knows.
She owes you going out and enjoying it.
Going out
I got
and
you.
having lunch.
I think I could twist her on.
Kurt, I
Tell her.
appreciate your answers on the
Yeah.
moral questions, because, there's a point where
It's
morality
tough. I mean,
and math
you guys are
intersect.
sitting in a tough seat, where do you draw the line?
That's why I like Bob Oley.
It's not easy. It's really not easy.
Well, thank you.
You
All right.
guys, you care a lot. Not every commission puts the time and attention and care. And I appreciate your comments as well. I know you think you're being tough on us, but, I do
No,
appreciate
no.
hearing the difference in opinions, because that means you care. you know?
Yeah, I mean, eventually
It's
I'll get,
apparent.
it through.
One day, maybe we'll see a whole bunch of holding chambers.
And you can thank Andy for sending you down here tonight, too. Yes, you
I
did.
seem to
All
always
right,
end
I
up
think it's
getting
your
these
turn.
ones.
Peter?
Hey, if you watch the meeting, I'm consistent.
You are consistent. You're absolutely
Peter,
right.
do you have a motion to make?
I do have a motion.
What might it be?
I make a motion we adjourn.
I second.
All in favor?
Yay.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.